So here we are in the Harow, which is a Roman Byzantine street going back about 1,500 years ago. And this is a great place to talk about the theme of the centrality of Jerusalem. What you see behind me is a facsimile, a recreation of a mosaic that's actually found in a church in what is today Jordan called Madaba. I've actually been there and seen it live. There's a newer church built over the original old church, but what you had here originally was a giant mosaic of the entire world that was known at the time, basically minus the Western Hemisphere, with like 3 leaves coming off of it to symbolize Africa, Asia, Europe, and in the center, in a circle, you see Jerusalem. Now this is not a Jewish map. Everything you see here is written in Greek, because this is the time of the Roman Byzantine Empire when Rome became Christian, and Jerusalem was an important city for them because of the events that take place in the Christian gospel. And you can see Jerusalem portrayed here, but this does not begin to compare to the centrality of Jerusalem to the Jewish people. Now, by the way, in the Christian Bible, Jerusalem is mentioned multiple times, but in the Hebrew Bible, Jerusalem, Moriah, Zion, Shalem, Jerusalem is mentioned 667 times. We are Jerusalem-obsessed people. Zion, 158 times. Wherever we are in the world, we are praying towards Israel. And in Israel, we're praying towards Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, we're actually praying not to the wall, but we're praying to that gold dome. But we are, as we say, gaga over the city. We break a glass at a wedding because you can't have total joy, even at the most joyous occasion, without the temple being rebuilt. So Jerusalem is definitely holiest to us, but we see it as holy to other people. What's interesting about this map, and it's a sad aspect of the map, is this is how the Christians view Jerusalem. You can see the Harow here. You can see a second Harow. You can see the Damascus Gate over here. You can see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You can see the new Church of Mary Magdalene, the Holy Zion Church. What is missing from this picture, sadly, is the largest feature of the old city, which is the Temple Mount, which is the largest platform ever built on the planet Earth. Because in the mind of the Byzantine Christian world, with the destruction of Jerusalem, they put a theological spin on it, was that because Jews had rejected Christianity, God rejected them and destroyed their city and exiled them and replaced their Bible with the New Testament, replaced Jerusalem with Rome. It's called replacement theology. So the Temple Mount not only doesn't appear on this map, it was turned into a garbage dump. A sad fact. And I would sort of say this is probably like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. With the Roman world, the Roman pagan world becoming Christian, just as the Middle Eastern world becoming Islamic, they weaned themselves off of paganism and more or less bought into a Jewish worldview, which gave Jerusalem significance to them, but then they thought they replaced us. That's the sad part of the story. So Jerusalem may be holy to Christians and Muslims, but it's important that we understand and that we can explain that it's only holiest to us, the Jewish people, our one and only holy city. But sadly, even today, 53 years after the reunification of Jerusalem in the 67 war, the holiest, the only people allowed to pray on the holiest spot in the world for the Jewish people are Muslims. Definitely something to think about during the 3 weeks and during the 9th of Av.
Hi everyone, Eve Harow, tour guide, podcaster, and public speaker. And we are now in Sussya. Sussya is in the southern Hebron Hills, at the very, very edges of the desert, an area called Sfar HaMidbar, which has its own halachot for a town at the edges of the desert. And that's exactly what Sussya is. It has a wall around, as you're allowed to have, and the graves outside the wall, right? Tuma outside where the people live, and courtyards and cisterns, and 30 mikvaot, and all the signs of a Jewish community. Now, we're not sure what Sussya was called in the ancient world, but we definitely have a community here of Jews, probably that lasted for about a millennia. Okay, we have signs here of the Chashmonaim, but the antiquities that have been discovered here in the last few decades are mainly from what we call the Byzantine period, the Christian period, from the 4th century up to the 7th century. And Ken Spiro spoke to you in front of the Madaba map in Yerushalayim about the centrality of Jerusalem for the Christians while they're erasing the Jews from Yerushalayim. But here in Sussya, we understand that during that same period, meaning the Jews still living in Eretz Yisrael, which is under control of the Christians and really living in a sea of Christians, Jerusalem has not been erased from the Jews. And this is a very unusual Beit Knesset that we're in right now. It's one of only 4 called Judean synagogues, all of them in this area, and it's built along the lines of the Beit HaMikdash. So the architecture here speaks volumes about how the Jews are feeling, even post-Churban. We're a few hundred years after the Churban, but you can sense the yearning for the Beit HaMikdash. It is palpable, and the desire to keep Judaism even in very difficult conditions. So it opens up on the eastern side as the Beit HaMikdash is. It's a rectangle, and the northern side is where the Torah scrolls were kept, and of course that faces towards Yerushalayim. There's beautiful mosaic on the floor here with a lot of different elements that it's its own shiur to talk about the floor of the shul here in Sussya. But just to point out a couple of things, you see the menorah, 2 menorot, and probably an image of the outside of the Beit HaMikdash. So you get a sense here of the praying towards Jerusalem as you do today. Those of you who are listening to this, who are Jews, devout Jews, with your own shuls, with your own Batei Knesset, but living in Christian countries, it's the same thing that was happening here. There are many Hebrew inscriptions because Hebrew was our language. There are many more Hebrew inscriptions found here than anywhere else. Like Dafka, we are going to be speaking Hebrew because that is our language, including a plaque in the corner of the synagogue thanking the family who donated the synagogue, like I bet you have in your synagogue as well. And this synagogue was also used kind of as a fortress. If things got dangerous in the outside area, there was a tunnel that led into the synagogue, and where you could protect everybody here in the synagogue. I guess you could use the escape tunnel going the other way if you wanted to leave the synagogue without being noticed, maybe like we have in shuls today. But this Sussya really, really shows us that even in a time when Christians are ruling the land, just like today, the Jews never forgot about the Beit HaMikdash. They never forgot about the Torah. They are doing their best to keep so many things here that we are still doing today. And I can't help but imagine some of them, had they been walking down the streets here 1,600 years ago and known that one day we would be strong and sovereign again in our land, Jews still building mikvaot, still having Batei Knesset, still keeping the laws of the Torah, they, I would imagine, would have felt that all their efforts were worth it. This place was abandoned, not destroyed, in the 7th, 8th century. We're not sure why. There was a terrible earthquake in 749. The Muslims came in and took over from the Christians, and the roads started to be not safe, and travel wasn't good. It's not clear exactly why the people left here. Maybe there was a plague. Very possible. What's going on today happened in the olden days as well. So this place was abandoned and redug and refound by Jews in the last few decades. And here we are standing in Sussya and understanding the non-stop, not just for today and not just on Tisha B'Av for us, the non-stop yearning for the Beit HaMikdash and the hope that one day it will be rebuilt. And we are standing on the shoulders of giants who made sure to continue that for us till today.
The Medrash Tanchuma tells us that Yerushalayim is the Tabur Haaretz, it's the center of the universe. And the Medrash Rabbah tells us also that Yerushalayim is Oru Shel Olam, the light of the world. We know it, we feel it. Whenever we go to Yerushalayim, we have this internal feeling, this intangible connection. So what is it? What is it about this city that brings us, that touches us so deep to the core? So I think there are 3 quick aspects of Yerushalayim that we can mention. Number 1, Yerushalayim is the spiritual center of the world. Ki mitzion teisei Torah, as Yeshayahu Navi tells us. The Sanhedrin, the greatest Rabbanim of the generation, sat in Yerushalayim. They made laws for all of Klal Yisrael. It radiated out. Tosfos and Baba Basra even says that when we went to Yerushalayim, we were inspired. Just seeing the Kohanim, the Leviim, the Rabbanim in action in God's holy city, that spiritually inspired us. And we still have some of that today. We daven for the day when it's even more intense. But number 1, the spiritual center. Number 2, Yerushalayim is halachically the capital city of Am Yisrael, of Malchus Beis David. The halacha tells us that at the end of every bracha of the Amida, of the Shemona Esrei, we have to summarize the theme of the bracha. At the end of Re'ei, ki goel chazakata. Rafa'enu, ki kel melech rofei ne'eman rachmanata, baruch Hashem. Right before the bracha, we say a summary, except for one. One doesn't fit the rule. Yerushalayim Yercham Barachamim Tashuv V'Zishkon B'Socha V'Chisei David Mehira L'Socha Tachen Baruch Hashem B'nei Yerushalayim. Malchus Beis David. That's the next bracha. As Samach David. Why are we mentioning Malchus Beis David in the bracha of Yerushalayim? So some flip the girsa, some flip the last two lines, but the Bach says no, because Malchus Beis David is a chelik of Yerushalayim. It's two sides of the same coin. And that's why it is the theme. And until we have Malchus Beis David, so then we won't have complete Yerushalayim. But halachically, it's the capital city. And number three, finally, Yerushalayim is representative of the unification and the unity of Am Yisrael. Ir shechubra la yachtav. And the Yerushalmi says, Mechaberes Yisrael zelazeh. We're unified with each other when we go to Yerushalayim. All types of Jews are connected. One of the 10 Nisim, the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos, that occurred in Yerushalayim. V'lo amar ben adam l'chaveiro tsar li hamakom sha'alin. Nobody says tsar li hamakom. It says the Baruch Sha'amar. It doesn't say there was plenty of room. It says v'lo amar adam l'chaveiro. Nobody complained about it, because when we feel connected and we feel unified, like Guf Echad, Kol Yisrael Arevim, then we don't complain about it. And that's the power of Yerushalayim. So it's the religious center, it's the power of the capital city, and it's the unification center. Yiratzon, that we not only zocha to Yerushalayim, but to Yerushalayim Habenuya b'meir of Yemen.